We've made it, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to tell you wide receivers that you should start or sit in week number 1 of the fantasy season. I'll be going through all 16 matchups, 32 teams, so you'll know exactly who to start here after watching this video. Now, you need to know I'm guaranteeing a reply to the first 3 comments of every video this year, so make sure you're subscribed and you've turned your notifications on. All right, let's jump to Thursday Night Football. Cowboys at Eagles. It's a 47.5 point over under, a great way to start the fantasy football season. NFC East battle. The Eagles are heavily favored, and you need to know that. They're favored by 7.5 points. That's tied for the largest spread of the week. Let's start with the Cowboys side of the ball. CeeDee Lamb is absolutely a must start. There's no way you could possibly have drafted this guy and had a better option on your roster. Now, yes, technically, if you look at the Eagles, they are not a good matchup based off what we saw last year, but CeeDee Lamb is an elite player. You're never sitting this guy. It doesn't matter what the matchup says, and he's inside, outside. They can move him around. Now, as far as George Pickens goes, I can't label him a must start. He is a my guy this year. I have big expectations, but I can only label him a spot start, meaning it will depend on your options. You'll notice throughout the video, there are rankings next to every single player's name if you are curious, where I kind of stand. But my guy this year, I'm all in on him, but this matchup does not look good, all right? Eagles last year were a difficult matchup. They gave up the second fewest passing yards per game in 2024. But here's the thing, looking at stuff from last year isn't always relevant to the next year, but the Eagles secondary is just going to get better. I mean, they were super young, a bunch of rookies last year, uber talented. That secondary is just going to get better and better. So they might be a better unit here. I'm not sure George Pickens is going to have the superstar game that you want him to, but he is still a flexible option. And in a lot of leagues where you drafted him, you're probably going to have to flex him. Moving on to the Eagles. This one is a lot more simple. A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, these are 2 guys that are going straight into your lineup. With all due respect, the Cowboys were a good matchup last year for your wide receivers. They had Micah Parsons last year. I mean, they were rushing the quarterback effectively. It was much easier on the secondary. This defense, I believe, is going to get torn to shreds this entire season. I believe each week we're going to be telling you, target the Cowboys, whether it's your running back, wide receiver, quarterback. So we're definitely going to start A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith with confidence. Last year with Micah Parsons, the Cowboys gave up the 5th most total yards per game in the NFL. It's going to be a nightmare in Dallas. I'm sorry, Cowboys fans. All right, let's jump to the second matchup. You need to set your lineups early because we've got a Friday night game in Brazil. The Chiefs at the Chargers. Well, it's in Brazil, technically. 45.5 point over under. The Chiefs are favored on the road. It's technically the road for both of these guys. But let's start with the Kansas City Chiefs. Xavier Worthy, in my mind, is an absolute must start. Rice is suspended to start the year. Worthy's going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. Last year, from week 11 onwards, he averaged 15.5 points per game, 74% of the snaps, almost 8 targets, and a 21% target share. He should continue to be the wide receiver 1. It just makes sense logically that a rookie who did great in his first year is going to progress in his second year, especially when an alpha target earner like Rashee Rice isn't available. Hollywood Brown, look, I would not be surprised if Hollywood Brown has some sneaky value here. He could have a more important role than we anticipate, but I would not trust him in my lineup for week number 1. Now, on the Charger side of the ball, this is definitely not a matchup that you're going to want to target this year with the Chiefs. They were locked down as a rush and a pass defense last year. However, Ladd McConkey, the unquestioned wide receiver 1 on the team, he was even more dominant than Xavier Worthy was to end the year last year. In fact, in that same time span from week 11 onwards, Ladd averaged 19 points per game, 8.3 targets, and 94 receiving yards. So do not question Ladd McConkey. He is a rock solid start. As far as Keenan Allen goes, I placed the risky start label on him, which means 95% of you guys are going to have a better option. This is a true Hail Mary, if you will, but Keenan does have a ton of inbuilt rapport with Justin Herbert, but we just have no idea what his role is truly going to be in 2025. It feels like he's going to earn targets, but we have seen nothing yet to confirm that, so it's just too risky to touch my lineups. Now, let's go into the third matchup of the week. This is the start of the 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time slate of games on Sunday. The Bucks at the Falcons. A lot of great divisional games here in week number 1. It's a 47.5 point over under, so a big game. A lot of points are expected, and it's supposed to be a close game, 1.5 point spread in favor of the Bucks. Now let's start with those Bucks because we've got two must-start wide receivers in Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka. In fact, at the time of recording this, I feel like I need to move Egbuka up my rankings. Like I feel like I got to get him in the top 24. We're going to figure it out, but he's a must-start. Evans and Egbuka are some of the only healthy weapons in this entire offense. It's them and Bucky right now, and those guys should feast. I know it's crazy to label Egbuka a must-start in week 1 as a rookie, but I struggle to see how he fails you. This is a Chris Godwin clone, but he's younger, first-round pick, ready to go. Baker Mayfield is just absolutely in love with him in interviews. I think he's a safe start in week number 1. Now, on the Falcons side of the ball, by the way, Falcons, both of these teams were a top 10 matchup for your wide receivers last year, so both of their secondaries were getting torched. But for the Falcons, Drake London is a top 10 wide receiver in my rankings. He and Michael Penix got off to a hot start last year in Penix's first 3 starts of his career. That was week 16, 17, and 18. And in that span, London averaged over 23 points, 13 targets, a 39% target share, and 117 receiving yards. I mean, Mooney was injured for some of it, but that is just insanity. We might see Drake London finish as the wide receiver 1 in week 1. I don't think that would surprise anyone. As far as Darnell Mooney goes, he has been back at practice. One of the more underappreciated flexes for 2025. Now, Mooney and Kirk had this mind meld last year that was very special. We're not 100% sure if that's going to be replicated with Michael Penix, but I do think Mooney is a very talented player. I've given him the spot start label, but I would probably say that 80 to 85% of you guys have a better option this week in your flex. He's my wide receiver 44, so I'm not 100% sold on him, but I definitely think he's a fair option. By the way, if you ever want to ask me a start-sit question, you can check out the pinned comment. There's a link there to our link tree. You can click on the Flock site, use a promo code LAND, and I will guarantee a reply on the Flock site. Let's go to our fourth matchup of the week. That is Bengals at Browns. 47.5 point over under. The Bengals are big time favorites. I think that works out great for the Cleveland wide receivers though. Like I have Jerry Jeudy as a must start. Don't get upset with me when I say this, but just listen to the facts. From weeks 8 to 14 last year, Jeudy had a gunslinger at quarterback and played with the Cleveland Browns, who were constantly down in games. Like every game, it was garbage time needing to come back. In that span, he had 21 points per game, 9.2 targets per game, and 113 receiving yards. While that's going to be difficult to repeat, is it not the same exact situation he's in now with Joe Flacco in week 1? I mean, that is why I personally placed him in my DFS Quick 6 Super Slam lineup for week 1. Just set my lineup there. We've got names, like Ricky Pearsall, Jameson Williams, Jerry Jeudy. I'm getting 2 times points for him this week. I want to get unique with this contest. All you do is choose 6 non-quarterbacks. I gave my boost to Jeudy 2 times points. Whoever scores the most points in their lineup this week wins the contest. So if you want to download the app, use the promo code LAND. FastDraft, use the code LAND. We'll match your deposit up to $50, and then you're going to get $50 free on us. That's 5 free contests, and I'm going to give you my week 1 rankings for free if you sign up, my weekly rankings for free. Now, let's jump to the Bengals side of the ball. I think this is pretty self-explanatory, but in case anybody needed some confidence here, you're going to start Jamar Chase. You're going to start T. Higgins. Duh, we're on the same page. But did you know that the Bengals wide receivers in 2 games last year versus the Browns both averaged 19 or more points and 70 plus receiving yards, as well as a touchdown per game against the Cleveland Browns? Those guys are locks each and every week into your lineup. Cedric Tillman is a sneaky guy. I think you should be stashing him because he could be the clear wide receiver 2 on a team that might need to throw the ball a lot. All right, let's jump to the 5th matchup here. We've got the Dolphins at the Colts. Over under is 46.5 points. Yes, Tyreek Hill is a must start. He should be good to go, and he should be starting for your fantasy teams. However, it's going to be a very interesting game to watch. I would not be surprised if Tyreek is actually toast at this point of his career, but you got to put the guy in there until he proves us that he is toast here in 2025. You should be trusting him in your lineups. Jalen Waddle is a spot start for me, my wide receiver 30. I believe there's a very realistic chance by the end of this season that he is their wide receiver 1. That is something to monitor. But the Colts last year were a top 12 matchup for your wide receivers. So it's definitely something that you can go ahead and chase. This should be a competitive game. It's a 1.5 spread between these 2 teams. So I don't see game script ruling out either of these sides. And as far as the Colts go, I know this is going to sound insane, but I am genuinely excited to see Daniel Jones throw to these wide receivers. I know that sounds so strange to hear, but that is because the alternative was Anthony Richardson. What can they do with even mediocre quarterback play? Because last year they had the worst quarterback play in the NFL. Out of 39 quarterbacks with 250 dropbacks, Richardson ranked 35th in PFF grade, last in completion percentage, last in adjusted completion percentage, last in NFL rating, and top 3 in turnover-worthy play percentage. So I can't wait to see even mediocre quarterback play for the Josh Downs, Michael Pittmans of the world. Now here's the deal. Last year, the Dolphins were technically the worst matchup for your wide receiver, but not everything is sticky from one year to the next. Defenses change, personnel changes, right? We see this each and every year. And the Dolphins are a team that's changed a lot, including losing Jalen Ramsey. This team lost Jalen Ramsey to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think they are actually going to be an easier matchup this year. I think Downs and Pittman are both flexible options, as your wide receiver 3 or 4 in your flex spot. I'm super excited for Downs this year. Hope he's completely healthy. But either way, I think Downs and Pittman are okay, flexible names. All right, let's jump to the Raiders at the Patriots. 42.5 point over under. And things are weird right now in Las Vegas, right? Maybe by the time you're watching this recording, we've seen Jacoby Myers sign a contract. But, the good news is despite wanting a new contract, Jacoby Myers is still practicing with this team. He's not holding out in street clothes or whatever. He's still practicing with this team, putting in the work. So we're still going to label him a spot start, meaning he's a flexible option for you. Now, I will say the Patriots last year were a top 13 matchup for your wide receiver. So that is good. Definitely something to chase. But they had a lot of injuries in their secondary. So don't be surprised if it doesn't work out from last year to this year. That's the only wide receiver I'm even considering starting with the Raiders. I'm not going to put Amari Cooper or Thornton out there. We just got to see something before we trust either of those names. And honestly, I think Amari Cooper is toast at this point. Now, on the wide receiver side for the Patriots, I do think Stephon Diggs is a more reliable start than even a Jacoby Myers. He should be the clear number 1 wide receiver. He's been completely cleared, of the injury. He's ready to go, ready to rock. I think people are going to be surprised how good he is to start the year. The clear number 1 target for Drake May. Can't wait to see those guys. I mean, finally, we get Drake May, a legit number 1 wide receiver. I know he's not the same player he used to be. But Demario Douglas is interesting. I labeled him a risky start, which means he's a true Hail Mary. 95% of you guys have a better starting option, but he has been labeled the star of training camp, the best wide receiver of training camp. So I'm really excited to see if any of that is going to be actionable or if it was just words and, just to kind of build the hype. All right, let's jump into the Cardinals at the Saints. 42.5 point over under. The Cardinals are pretty heavy favorites, almost a touchdown favorite. We are going to start Marvin Harrison Jr. I know it wasn't a good year last year. I know you guys had higher expectations and he didn't meet them, but we're going to start Marvin with a lot of confidence. Last year, the Saints were a top 10 matchup for your wide receiver. And in my humble opinion, they've only gotten worse as a team all around. So we should see a very dominant performance by the Arizona Cardinals. The Saints gave up the 5th most passing yards per game last year. I think that number could be even higher this year. Look for Marvin to rebound and, kind of show how good of a talent he is. Now, for the Saints, last year the Cardinals were a difficult matchup, but I'm not even so focused on what happened last year. I am incredibly concerned, again, nothing to do with the Cardinals. Doesn't matter who this team would have played. I'm concerned because of Spencer Rattler. That is their starting quarterback in New Orleans. And let me tell you guys, it was not great in 2024 when Spencer Rattler was starting for this team. The receiving yardage high for a wide receiver in 5 games where he started was 57 receiving yards. And on average, in 5 games, his top wide receiver averaged 3.8 receptions, 38.6 receiving yards, and 40% of the time scored a touchdown. His top receiver. He loves targeting the tight ends, by the way. So, man, the Chris Olaves, the Rashid Shaheeds, the Devon Vele's. I mean, there's no way Shaheed or Vele, I don't have the nuts to put him in my lineup. Maybe you do. Maybe you got the crystal ball and you know what's going on. There's no chance in hell I'm putting Shaheed or Vele into my lineups. Olave is more of a flex desperation play. Wide receiver 37. I really need to see it from Rattler first. Here's what I will say. Something you may not have heard enough is in the Kellen Moore offense, the slot wide receiver is very important. You can see that and trace it back to everywhere he's been as a coordinator. Now, we have seen Chris Olave get a lot of work in the slot in the preseason, and there's a lot of indications to suggest he will play much more in the slot this year, which means we should have a lot more easy layups. I love my wide receivers going inside, outside. So Chris Olave is the only one I trust, but man, you do not watch the Saints game if you start Olave. You cover your eyes, you watch any other game, I'm promising you. Okay, let's jump to the Steelers at the Jets. 37.5 point over under. You heard that right. That's the lowest over under of the entire week. The Steelers are favored by 3 points. This is the quarterback revenge bowl, right? The Rodgers Fields revenge bowl. These guys swapped places and now they're playing for opposite teams. I mean, the NFL schedule makers just went and had a field day with this one. But let's start with the Steelers side of the ball. The Jets were an incredibly difficult matchup last year. 26th in points allowed to wide receivers. You know, a bottom 6 or 7 matchup for your wide receiver. I am going to label DK a must start, but you'll notice he's my wide receiver 28. So he's actually right on the edge of a must start and a spot start. So, you know, obviously if you drafted him, you probably took him in rounds, 5? So he's got to be in your lineup, I imagine. But I would just have very low expectations. I could see a rough start for his career in Pittsburgh here starting in week number 1. Last year, the Jets gave up the 5th fewest passing yards per game. You know, Sauce Gardner and them boys are no joke in that secondary. Yes, their offense was mediocre last year, but their defense was still solid. So, yes, you can put DK out there, but man, I could see this going bad. I really could. So, lower your expectations. Now, on the opposite side of the ball, same thing. Garrett Wilson, I have a little bit more confidence in. Let's hope we see the Ohio State Fields-Wilson combo out there on Sunday. But this is another tough matchup. 2 very good defenses. You know, the Steelers are going to be even better this year. Last year, they were 20th in points allowed to the wide receiver spot, but they added names like Jalen Ramsey. I mean, this defense is going to be very good. So I would not be surprised, genuinely, if both of these names were disappointments this week. Like that would not shock me whatsoever. But again, because of where you drafted them, I really doubt any of you have a better option, you know, sitting on your bench. So you're going to have to put them in there, but do not watch the game. I'm begging you. Do not watch the game. All right, let's jump to the 9th matchup here. We've got the Giants at the Commanders, 45.5 point over under. The Commanders are 6.5 point favorites, the 3rd largest spread of the week. So the Commanders are, according to Vegas, supposed to win this game. Now, you know, games aren't played on papers or spreadsheets, are they? But let's start with the Giants. We are obviously going to put Malik Nabers out there. The guy had 6,000 targets as a rookie. Now he gets a quarterback upgrade, averaging over 18 points per game with the likes of Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito and, you know, the guy from Walmart at your local Kroger's. The Giants will need to throw the ball for the majority of this game. Nabers is such a safe play with such a special upside. Do not sleep on him this week, as if any of you would. For the Commanders, do not be afraid to put Terry McLaurin right into your lineup. I know people are going to ask, well, is this a Brandon Ayuk situation from last year where they need to build chemistry? Well, Jaden Daniels himself said the chemistry with Terry McLaurin never left. It never leaves. It's always there. It's inbuilt. So they're confident starting off the year on the same page. It's a good matchup against the Giants. They should win this game. Obviously, things, you know, anything can happen. But last year, Terry's one of the best wide receivers in fantasy, and he's back. He got his own little bag there. But also, I got such confidence in Deebo Samuel as well. I cannot wait to see Deebo Samuel in this offense. He fits this offense like a glove. He is the perfect fit for a Cliff Kingsbury offense. They're going to use him out of the backfield. They're going to use him in the screen game. Let him dominate after the catch, after the carry. I cannot wait. So many of you in the comment section have been trolling me on Deebo Samuel. I cannot wait to see this guy dominate in Washington. All right, 10th matchup we're looking at here. We've got the Panthers at the Jags. It's a 46.5 point over under, and the Jags are favored by 3 points. The Panthers, let's start there. So, in the last week and a half, the Panthers traded away Adam Thielen, named Jalen Coker their starting slot wide receiver, and then Jalen Coker went to the IR. So, T-Mac is going to get so many targets, he might drown by the time this game is over. Last year, the Jags were the 8th best matchup for your wide receiver. I don't think they've done anything significant to improve that cornerback room. Obviously, Travis Hunter, don't hear what I'm saying, but Travis Hunter is not going to play full-time cornerback in week 1. They have told us they're going to slowly work him in. So don't expect Travis Hunter out there, shadowing T-Mac to start, the first game of the season. But we're going to start T-Mac with a lot of confidence. I cannot wait to see him. In my opinion, he is this year's Malik Neighbors. Not the same talent, of course, but in the sense of top 10 pick in a position ready to smash, no one to compete with targets. On the opposite side of the ball, Brian Thomas is an absolute must start. Can't wait to see him deployed in the Liam Cohen offense. Of course, you're going to start Brian Thomas, but I also think that Travis Hunter is a startable name. Do you like to party? If your name is Rod and you like to party, you can flex Travis Hunter, okay? Because we've already been told multiple times, there's so many indications that he's going to play a heavy amount of snaps on offense. The coach is even guaranteed like 80% of the snaps. Do not be surprised if Travis Hunter has a great week 1 game and everyone's like, oh my gosh, why didn't I draft him higher in my fantasy drafts? I think a lot of people could be saying that after week number 1. This should be a close game. Should be a very close game, and both sides should be in it. Let's jump to the afternoon slate of games. We've got the Titans at the Broncos. This is the second lowest over-under of the week at 41.5 points. The Broncos are favored by 7.5 points, tied for the largest spread of the week. So Vegas thinks the Broncos are going to win this one pretty easily. And I'll be honest, I'm very worried about Calvin Ridley in week 1. Very worried. The Broncos were 21st in points allowed last year, sure, but he's going to get the Pat Surtain treatment. And, rookie quarterback in his first start in Cam Ward, I think he could be good. We all want to see this duo succeed, but rookie quarterback, his first start, Pat Surtain, the Denver Broncos defense, I did label Calvin Ridley a spot start, but I got to be honest with you, there is major bust potential written all over this matchup for Calvin Ridley. So proceed with caution. You're not starting anyone else on this team, by the way. On the opposite side of the ball, we are going to start Courtland Sutton with a lot of confidence. From week 8 onwards last year, he had higher averages than A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson in targets, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns. And then this team went out there and paid him like an alpha. So he is the alpha on this team, the unquestioned number 1 target. He should shine this entire season. Now, I did label Marvin Mims a risky start. We're not 100% sure his status with the groin at the time of recording this. He's more of a Hail Mary play. Have some fun in a DFS lineup, but don't trust this guy in your actual fantasy lineup where you're making tough decisions. Best ball's great. DFS is great if you want to, throw a Hail Mary on him, but don't trust him in your actual, managed lineups. Let's jump to the 49ers at the Seahawks. This should be a really exciting game. Hey, all right, so 44.5 point over under. The 49ers are favored at Seattle. What do you Seattle fans think of that? So let's start with the 49ers. So last year, the Seahawks were a middle-of-the-pack matchup. They were a fine matchup to go out there and target. But I'm not really targeting Ricky because of the matchup. I'm targeting Ricky Pearsall, and I'm starting him with confidence as my wide receiver 25 this week because literally he is the only wide receiver who is not injured or suspended. Guys, right now, at the time of recording this, we don't know if Jennings is going to play. We have no idea. Is he suspended? Is calf really injured? Or is it this both and there's no real calf injury? We don't know. At the time of recording this, I have no idea. Even if Jennings plays, I would still label Jennings a risky start. I would not be trusting him in my lineup. There has just been, every reason for him and Brock Purdy and this team not to be, synchronized. But as far as Ricky Pearsall, Jordan Watkins, their rookie, is injured. Demarcus Robinson is suspended. Brandon Ayuk is on IR. Jacob Cohen is on IR. Trent Taylor's on IR. They went out and had to trade for Sky Moore. Ricky Pearsall should be a smash start in week number 1. And by the way, with the whole Jawan Jennings thing, again, I don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of days. We're going to have to monitor the news closely. But with news rapidly changing each and every day, the 2025 season pass on the Flock site is a must-have for your fantasy season. When you use a promo code LAND, it is a $34 one-time purchase. That's about $2 per week for the entire fantasy season. And when you get the season pass, you'll get access to my season-long weekly rankings, rest of season rankings. So up to the minute, every time I hit save on my rankings, you'll know exactly what I think about 4 weekly rankings. You also get access to the entire site, all the tools, some start, sit, and trade question vouchers to come on the, on the live streams and ask me questions about your team. Look, create a free account with the promo code LAND. Check out the My Team Analyzer. It's completely free. And if you see any value in the site, then you can sign up. All right. Okay, now as far as the Seahawks go, JSN is a clear must start. I don't think people realize how dominant he's going to be for this team. He will be their top target earner by far. In PPR leagues, he is so safe. Now, Cooper Kupp, we are going to label a risky start. I guess you could put spot start on this, but I honestly think I need to see Cooper Kupp's role before we put trust in him. This is a guy that they're probably going to force in the slot a little bit out wide, but at this point of his career, there's all indications that he is not going to win outside anymore. So I'm a little bit concerned. I want to see exactly how they're going to deploy him. If it's a full-time slot role, that will be interesting because there'll be a lot of layups. But again, most of you, like 95% of you guys, are going to have a better option to start in week 1. All right, let's jump to another divisional matchup. The Lions at the Packers. 48.5 point over-under, a big mamma jamma, second highest over-under of the week. The Packers are favored at home. Last year, these two teams combined for over 100 points in the two matchups they faced against each other. Let's start with the Lions. We've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. Of course, you're going to start him. Do you need me to tell you that? You're going to start Amon-Ra St. Brown in your first or second round pick. And we're also going to go ahead and put Jameson Williams in there with confidence. This offense was elite last year. It will be elite again this year. I know Ben Johnson is gone. I do not care. Jameson Williams, we've heard all these reports that he's going to be a crucial part of this offense. And I think we're going to see that here in week number 1. Now, on the Packers side of things, I would prefer to wait and see on this entire offense, but it should be a high-scoring affair according to Vegas. So I think Matthew Golden is a spot start. You can flex him if you want to. But as far as the Jaden Reeds, the Romeo Dobbs, I think those guys are just too risky to start in week 1. Better DFS plays, best ball plays, but when you're in managed leagues, I'm really struggling trusting those guys. I mean, for Jaden Reed, he's practicing through a Jones fracture. This guy's a ticking time bomb. Any given moment of a game, he could be out of the game. And Love is currently wearing a brace on his non-throwing hand. So we have to ask the question, will that impact his accuracy? Yes, it's not the throwing hand, but that will impact the way he holds the ball. That will impact the way that he snaps the ball, shotgun, etc. So look, I would prefer to wait and see on this Packers offense, but Golden is the only player I really think you can flex with confidence. All right, let's go to the Texans at the Rams. It's a 44.5 point over under. The Rams are favored at home. Of course, you're starting Nico Collins. Duh, you know that. One of the best wide receivers in fantasy last year before he went down with that hamstring injury. But let's talk about Christian Kirk. I did label him a risky start. So again, I think the vast majority of you have a better option. But man, he's a really fun DFS play. I got him as my wide receiver 46. He has sneaky flex appeal. I keep thinking that this could be this year's Keenan Allen from last year, as in old veteran on an offense that's going to need to throw it to him a lot out of the slot and has, PPR value. But let's wait and see on that. For the Rams, both Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams are smash starts. For now, Matthew Stafford is healthy. Take advantage of that. These guys have to be in your lineups. I don't care how you do it. They've got to be in your lineups. I don't care if you're in an 8-team league. Put them out there. They're both probably going to get somewhere in the range of 8 to 10 targets in this game. Let's jump to the second last matchup here, Sunday Night Football, and we've got an absolute banger here. Ravens at Bills. This is the highest over-under of the week. The Bills are favored, but the spread is so close. It's 1.5 points. Now, to be honest, I'm not really it's a high over-under, so there's going to be value in this wide receiver room, but I am not really super excited to start any of these names. Zay Flowers is my highest ranked receiver of this group, but Zay Flowers is a player that, depending on game script and depending on certain weeks, will either disappear or will get you 20 points. It seems like there's no in between for him. Some weeks it's a Rashad Bateman week. We have to see what DeAndre Hopkins does. I mean, if you had any hope that Flowers was going to be a more important red zone option, now with DeAndre Hopkins there and Mark Andrews healthy, I mean, it's just hard to see it, but he is a flexible name for me. Zay Flowers as my wide receiver 31. So a great flexible option. Now for the Bills, Khalil Shakir is a very safe start, but doesn't have a very high ceiling, right? You can guarantee get 10 PPR points. I put him as my wide receiver 40 as a spot start. You can put him out there for some safety, but I wouldn't expect him to win you your week. Keon Coleman, I did label a risky start. I am really excited to see Keon Coleman in year 2. I think he's a sneaky guy that a lot of people did not draft high enough. So I'm super excited to see if he comes out of the gates. I mean, who is the other outside receiver there that's going to stop him from breaking out? I would love to see him take another step, but again, probably don't want to trust him here in week number 1. All right, last matchup of the week. We've got Monday Night Football. What a banger again. Shout out to the NFL for the schedule in week 1. We've got Vikings at Bears, 43.5 point over under. The Vikings are favored even though it's in Chicago. Now, here's the deal. Last year, the Vikings were the best matchup for your wide receiver in fantasy football. They were the number 1 target each and every week for your fantasy wide receiver. Obviously, things can change from one year to the next. That's not so sticky. The Vikings defense has changed, but we're still going to target that until further notice. So both DJ Moore and Rome Odunze will be must starts for me. DJ Moore, I've not been loving the reports of him taking snap at running back. I'm going to be honest with you. That's not been fun to see, but I think that's more experimental from Ben Johnson. As far as Rome Odunze, as you guys know, one of my favorite breakout players of 2025. Let's get it started right on Monday Night Football. Have some confidence with me, all right? My name's Rod, and I like to party, and we're putting him straight into our lineup. I don't care if you got to flex him or start him. Make it happen. We're going to target this matchup. It should be a great game, and the Bears should need to throw the ball throughout the game. As far as the Vikings go, this is the start of the J.J. McCarthy era on Monday Night Football. Wow, it should be fun. Of course, you're starting Justin Jefferson. We all know that. Now, last year, some people got spooked out because of Sam Darnold. Will we see the same thing happen this year where in week 1, J.J. McCarthy just throws Jefferson a big bomb and we're all like, okay, he's fine. Let's calm down. Now, as far as Adam Thielen goes, remember, no Jordan Addison because he's suspended. My wide receiver, 57, more of a DFS play. I wouldn't really trust him in any managed lineup, but just wanted to mention him there in case you're building some DFS lineups. But guys, I appreciate you so much for watching the video. Do me a favor, hit the like button to show some love, subscribe if you like the content, and I want you to comment down below and tell me one player that you have the utmost confidence in week 1 in your fantasy team. All right, let's go get it. Let's get another W here, 1-0. Good luck. Draft with me every night this offseason on the FastDraft app, where there are over $250,000 in prizes waiting to be won. Getting started is easy. Download the FastDraft app, use the promo code LAND at signup to get your deposit match up to $50. That is 10 free drafts on us. And when you finish your first real money contest, I'll send you my 2025 rookie report and season rankings completely free. Check out the link in the pinned comment to start drafting today.